Welcome, you're watching Head to Head with UATV. I am Oles Gerjuk. Today we're talking about climate change. It is a fact of modern life affecting the natural world and with it society. Governments are spending trillions to reverse the environmental damage, and numerous international organizations are aimed at fixing this problem. So how serious are the effects of climate change in Ukraine? How could this problem influence the agricultural sector? And are there any ways to adapt food production to the new environmental conditions? To answer these questions, we are joined in the studio by Mykhailo Malkov, Development Program Coordinator for Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations. Hello, and thank you for being with us today.
Hello, good afternoon.
So, Mr. Malkov, how has the climate been changing in Ukraine?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that the climate infrastructure has been the State Meteorological Committee of Ukraine is making their analysis starting from the year 1961, and they confirm that the climate is seriously changing, starting from the temperatures and finishing with the frequency of various rains, snows, and all the perceptions. And it is also quite important to say that there are always shocking changes in the temperature within a very small period of time. So when we are talking about climate change, we need to say, first of all, that we have a longer time with higher temperatures. The temperatures are becoming higher, say 1 or 2, sometimes 1 degree per year. And then we have less freezing temperatures in the snow. We have less rains in spring and especially in summer, in July. And however, we have some heavy rains coming to us in October and November in the autumn. So these are the major trends in climate change. And this, of course, is because of this, of course, changes the geographical zonings and climate zonings inside Ukraine. That's first point. And of course, it influences the agricultural production, agricultural sector, which is one of the most vulnerable sectors for climate activity.
Could you specify how does it influence the agricultural sector?
First of all, let's say like this: first time ever, I've found that the steppe zone in the Ukraine is becoming more dry, and it is more close nowadays. In some areas, it becomes more close to semi-desert area, right? And we have some subtropical areas now. There are some trends speaking about subtropical areas, and the steppe zone is moving further to the north, up to 150, 200 kilometers, starting from the year 1961.
Wow.
So that means that a lot of...
It's moving fast.
Yes, it is moving very fast. And when we are talking about this, we need also to say that the agriculture should adapt to this trend. And, we need sometimes... it gives us a lot of possibilities, a lot of agricultural cultures which could be cultivated in the south part, only in the south part. Nowadays can be cultivated in Kiev Oblast, in Zhytomyr Oblast, so it brings us a lot, some opportunities. On the other hand, of course, the big quantity of droughts, which are very famous, used to bring us a huge problem for agricultural activities in the southern parts, and so thus we need a lot of you need to modernize the system of irrigation, which has been announced officially as one of the top priorities for the Ministry of Agrarian Policy and Food. Finally, when we are talking about the livestock, this is a very common and very interesting example. Because of the high level of the temperatures, the cows, especially in the summertime, they stopped eating. They used to eat much less quantity of grass, and thus the quantity of milk produced by the cows sometimes are reducing up to 40%.
Lower.
It becomes lower up to 40%, and this is, this is significant losses, and that is why when we are talking about adaptation to climate change, we have to take into consideration 2 points. First of all, we need to find out the adaptation measures, and we should understand that these adaptation measures, they should cover both particular losses and sometimes the opportunities for the sector.
What are these adaptation measures that you're talking about?
Well, first of all, FAO, from our perspective, we believe that the adaptation is only one part of the climate policy. When we promote so-called climate-smart agriculture, which is an approach, it's not a technology, and which combines 3 major areas, which we need to address during the respective government climate policy. The first one, of course, is increasing of the productivity of the agricultural sector. This is the most important issue. The second one, of course, is adaptation, which is a part of it, just one part, and we will speak about it a little bit more. And the third one, of course, is the reduction of the emission of the greenhouse gases, which is the major source of the major reason of the climate change, of course.
Yeah, because how to increase the productivity if we have this climate change in the conditions of climate change?
And this is, everything influence to the everything. When this approach should be addressed on the national level, should be addressed on the on the regional level, and of course also on the farm level, and of course it should be cross-sectoral. So this is our approach, and in order to complete it, we need to find out, well, the adaptation measures means the technology first of all. We need to change, probably, if you are talking about agriculture, plant producing, we need, probably some sorts could be changed. This is the easiest way, We need to, based on the result, based on the analysis of the climate and climate forecast, based on the trends of changing of the climate, there are probably some new cultures should be introduced, and new sorts should be introduced for this or that particular
Ukraine.
Yes, to be planted in Ukraine for this or that particular area.
But what measures are being taken by Ukrainian government for prevention?
Well, the Ukrainian government has officially addressed the climate change issue as one of the most important issues. I don't know whether you're aware or not. Ukraine actually ratified the Paris Convention. And Ukraine was one of the first countries, or the very first countries, which has provided the hard copy of the text of this convention to the UN depository. And that means that the climate issue should be addressed in every particular sphere of the economy of the whole country, including agriculture, of course. And taking into account that the agricultural sector is very, very vulnerable for the climate change, of course, the Ministry of Agrarian Policy and Food is promoting a lot of measures, and both in adaptation and mitigation to climate change. And as I've told you, that should be addressed. They are promoted both on the national level and, on the other hand, through the various workshops, with the help of the donors, with the help of their experts. They used to address it also on a much lower level. And nowadays, we as FAO, we are developing under the request of the government, we are developing the special document which is called the Priorities of Agricultural Sector for Adaptation and Mitigation to the Climate Change. And one of the biggest advantages of this sector is that first time ever we used to address this issue also not for the big farms and not for the whole country, but also as a special chapter for the small-scale farming, like family farming, private farming, and sometimes medium-scale farming.
So is this some kind of tutorial, some list of recommendations for the small farmers, how to use the soil, or what measures to take
yes,
to
of
produce
course.
more?
First of all, they need to know what's happening inside and what's happening with their climate. They need to get the information. They need to gets acquainted with the real trends related to the change of climate. You know, and
how is it called once again? Excuse me, the document.
The document is the national priorities for adaptation and mitigation of agricultural sector of Ukraine to climate change, which first time ever includes the whole sector, plus fisheries, plus forestry.
And how could the farmers get an access to this information, to this
As
document?
I've told you, it is on preparation now. We'll deliver the very first draft to the ministry somewhere in the middle of February. And not later than the end of March and the end of the first quarter, it will be available in Ukrainian language for download, for sure. And that means, and we'll also produce a hard copy of this document, which should be widely distributed. And also we believe that if it is accepted by the Ministry of Agrarian Policy and Food, I do believe it will be accepted in any circumstances, because we're working quite closely in preparation of this document, also with the Agrarian Academy of Science and some other people, or some other top experts, national top and international top experts. Then, of course, it can be addressed also through the sources of the Ministry of Ecology, through, through the sources of the Ministry of Agrarian Policy and Food.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the Global Environmental Facility? It is operating almost for 30 years already, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, the GEF actually is a international financial organization, which has been created in order to support the implementation of environmental conventions. And this is a core idea of, and this is a program scope of the Global Environmental Facility.
And it's operating in Ukraine as well?
Yes, Ukraine is fully eligible for getting the access to the GEF funds.
Why is it being called the main investment project in Eastern Europe?
You mean with what project?
This GEF project, or what?
There are plenty of projects funded by GEF. So let's say like this. The Global Environmental Facility is a financial institution, right? It provides the funds to the countries or to the regions based on the program basis through the official agencies which used to work in this or that particular country. If we are talking about the GEF portfolio in Ukraine, then GEF is used to provide their funds through several agencies like UNDP, UN Environment, United Nations International Development Organization, UNIDO, and us, like Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations.
And what task do these organizations follow in Ukraine?
It depends. It always depends on their mandate. UNEP is dealing with everything in principle related to environment. In particular, they have the project related to the development, as far as I know, of a protected area in Chernobyl area. They have there are few projects related to implementation, 2 projects actually, and to implementation of Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants. UNIDO has also some chemicals project, as far as I remember, and UNDP has a large portfolio of GEF projects also in chemicals and some mini grants. If we are talking about us, our mandate is pretty limited. However, we have managed to get the project and to introduce it to the government, the project related to combating land degradation in forest steppe and steppe zones of Ukraine, which is also, related to climate change, of course, and because land degradation and climate change are very, very close issues.
But does this GEF provide the biggest donations about the climate change, for example, for Ukraine? Where do finances come from for this kind of programs?
In principle, I would say that it is one of the biggest, so if we are talking about climate change and environmental activities, yes, GEF is one of the biggest funding source for but it's certainly one of the biggest, but not the only one. There are plenty of other donors investing, and also like Sweden, for example, and Germany. They are investing a lot of money supporting or providing support to Ukraine in this and that particular issue related to the environmental protection.
Okay, Mr. Malkov, we're running out of time, but my last question would be: how does the climate change affect the other spheres in spite of agrarians?
First of all, everything is closely connected one to the other. When we are when we are talking about agriculture, then of course we are talking about the food security. We are talking about food safety issues, and that's
food prices.
Food prices, and that's of course we are also talking about human health, for example, or whatever. But if we step out from agricultural activities and all related issues, let's go, for example, to the other aspect. It's connection of impacts of climate change to railway sector. When we are I'm not sure whether you understand, but railway sector is also very much vulnerable for climate change, because first of all, if we are talking about the passengers transportation, because of increase of the temperature in the summer and sometimes extreme low temperatures during winter time. We know a lot of examples of some problems with Hyundai intercity trains. When the people are freezing somewhere in the fields. There should be the huge air conditioning inside, but it also should be air conditioning inside the railway stations.
Yes.
Because the people, especially in the big railway stations, the people need to breathe fresh air. The second point is, of course, they need to get, if you're talking about passenger transportation, they need to get access to the water. Sometimes they need to get more serious medical care presented in the railway stations because of possible impacts of heat, for example, to the people. And there are plenty of other examples. And the most interesting story is related to allergy, because there are shelter belts alongside the railways, and sometimes the trees have become more vulnerable, and the impacts more to their possible allergic reactions of the people who are transporting by railways. So that should be also taken into consideration. If you are talking about the transportation of or logistics, or transportation of various goods, then of course the sector is changing, and the structure of transported goods used to be changed as well. So the transportation, the railways should be adapted to this change, by changing of the quality of wagons, by probably, if you are talking again about food transportation, by increasing of the quality of refrigerated wagons, and etc. So there. Climate change
influences everything.
Everything is influencing absolutely everything. It's just one example. We can say whatever you offer, whatever sector we can easily make a model about possible
change because of the climate. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you very much.
That was Mykhailo Malkov, Development Program Coordinator for Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Thank you so much for watching Head to Head. I'm Oles Garjuk. Goodbye.